Hello, everyone. So, my name is Carrie Carlson again, and I am a brain injury specialist with BrainLinks. And I'm going to talk to you guys about cognitive modalities and interventions. This is the second video in the series. If you have not yet watched the video on concussion and TBI, you can, it's suggested that you watch that one first, but you can watch it after this. It's not that big of a deal. But it might make a little bit more sense to you if you watch that one first. Like I said, not a big deal. Continue watching, and it'll be just fine. So let's see. Let me get this to work here. Okay, so BrainLinks is funded on both a federal level through the Administration for Community Living and on a state level through the Tennessee TBI program. And we are an organization of the Tennessee Disability Coalition. So BrainLinks, we're a statewide team of brain injury specialists. There are 4 of us. As with the first video, you will have our contact information at the end of this. Please contact any one of us if you need any further assistance, or you guys need another training or whatever it is, right? So we do equip professionals to better serve people with traumatic brain injury with current research-based training and tools. We have family-friendly educational materials. Again, those materials are, we try to get them down to a 6th or 8th grade reading level. We have resources for returning to work, returning to school, and returning to a learning center or day program setting. That letter was covered on the concussion and TBI video. And we've got toolkits for healthcare providers and school nurses. And then we have IDD specific resources. And we also have a YouTube training channel specific for that. And these videos are cover all that information as well. So today we're going to talk about what is cognition, what are the different domains or subtypes, however you want to say that, and what are some communication suggestions for that. And a lot of this that I'm going to go over today will definitely help you all working with people that you are serving in the therapy center and learning center. So what is cognition, right? We're going to go into all of these different domains or subtypes and really get a little bit deeper with these because I know people talk about cognition all the time, but really understanding what it is key to helping someone. So attention, right? What is attention? Attention is not just a unitary skill, meaning, we don't just pay attention one way, right? You've got your people who have visual attention. We've got verbal attention. We have task specific, right? Does somebody like doing a certain task, or is somebody better at one thing, or do they pay attention to one thing better than another? Do they like trains? Could you incorporate trains into what they're doing, right, to help them grasp that better? How long can somebody pay attention? I challenge you to look at your watch right now, see what time it is, and then when you're no longer paying attention to me, see what time that is, right? I'm just going to look at mine. Mine says it's 1:54, right? So how much time can you pay attention, right? And when you do lose your attention, why? Is it because I've been talking too long, right? I can be long-winded, it's okay. The density, right? The complexity. Am I talking over your head or something you're not interested in, or, whatever? And then do you have any distractions? Yes or no, right? Distractions, visual, verbal, can really bother somebody. And that really depends also on what's happening, right? I'm not somebody who's very easily distracted by noise or sounds. But one day I was doing this exact presentation at this exact moment, and my dog was crying outside of my door. So obviously, knowing that she was upset, it became a distractible moment for me too, right? So what is that distraction that's causing that? And then what type of distraction is it? Like I just said. Um, so we might need to make sure that we're getting people's attention. I always joke during this time, and it's not really a joke, but I know in my house that I have to get people's attention, right? I have a husband and a 6 year old. And if I tell them something while they're playing a video game or watching TV, they're not paying attention to me. They are not going to remember a word that I said, right? So let's get their attention. Let's add pictures if they're a visual person. Let's add words if they like words. If there's somebody who loves rhyming, right? I remember I had a teacher in high school that he had taught algebra. He had a disability, and for him, making music, right, to help us remember, was interactive. It was fun. It helped him and it helped us, right? So, can you add, if they like to rhyme or if they like to rap, can you add something to that? Can you shorten it, simplify it? Can you control the environment if you know that this is somebody who's very distracted? Can you control that environment? Reduce that noise. Maybe if this is somebody who's had a new injury, and distractions are really bothering them, but they now have somebody who they've always sat with that now is a really big distraction to them, right? Maybe they do things like that on the table, right? That didn't bother that person before, but now it really bothers them. So just figure out what that is. And then memory. Again, what is their memory? Do they have a good short term memory or do they have a good long term memory or vice versa? And your working memory, right? Can they remember something, but can they take that back out later and add to it? New learning is often challenging for people with brain injury. They can usually um, um, remember things that they've learned or pick up things that they'd learned in the past, that they've forgotten easier. But new learning is often challenging. So how do you figure that out, right? Repetition. Is this somebody now who needs to hear something? They need to repeat something and they need to write it down. And that's the way to help them. I know that when I'm trying to remember something, I now use different colored markers, right? So that helps me because while I'm remembering it, I can kind of visualize those different colors. Is this somebody that's really good at remembering episodes, right? Or events that happen? Are they really good at remembering procedural things? Things that have a procedure that you have to do, right? Are they somebody who is better with numbers and timelines, or are they somebody who's better with dates and events of things that happen? Again, as somebody a better visual learner or verbal learner. And I will tell you that I have people do this to me all the time. I shared this on the last video. I have a macular degeneration. So people automatically discount the fact that I'm a visual learner. I am a visual learner. It might not be, it's going to be a barrier one day, right? But just because somebody wears glasses or if they're having vision difficulties now from a brain injury, don't discount the fact that they are a visual learner. Help them deal with it, and help them find different ways to grow on those strengths and to build on that and work with their brain injury now. Like I said, use those strengths. Maybe you need to create a procedure or a routine to something that really didn't have one before. Using a list or a planner or pictures or cue cards. I know when my grandmother, after her brain injury, and her dementia, we used to have to put sticky notes up for her, and it really worked after a while. Um, and pause um, for processes that are happening, right? And go into those, allow people the time to process things and pause before they go to something else. And then executive functioning, right? These are the skills that we use every day to get through life. So it's that initiation, that planning, that problem solving, self monitoring, flexibility. I'm going to go into these more in depth, but this includes higher level of skill, right? And some people before brain injury might have had problems with this, but definitely after brain injury, they might have even more problems with this. Okay. But so this is a hierarchy of self awareness. So we have to remember before anything that after a brain injury and before a brain injury, right? I know people who would not be classified as having a brain injury that doesn't have the awareness to understand what's going on with them. So some people have no awareness at all. Some people has that intellectual awareness, right? Um, where they kind of understand that they've got an issue. And then the emergent awareness, that person who understands that they've got something going on, but they don't know that it's going on until it's an emergency, until they're right in that situation where it's happening right now. And then some people know that they have a something going on and they can anticipate for it, right? They can bring that planner. They can they can say, hey, you know what, I have class today and we're going over this really long prep for a test or within the learning center, right? It's a big day for them in that environment. They know to bring their planner or to take notes or bring that recording device that they need to use. And you, as that individual, let's stop. Let's help them stop. Let's help them think about this. Let's plan for it and then go back and evaluate. Always evaluate what's going on. And ask those leading questions. I know usually we don't like to ask leading questions, but is there anything that you could see that might be difficult happening later, right? And then if you have a plan, say, hey, you know what, let's bring that planner, right? How did that work? Is that helping you? Maybe using Alexa, right? To remember things. Is that helping? And then give feedback gently and always ask permission on all of these things that I'm going over today, right? Ask permission to help somebody in that moment, right? Can I please give you feedback and help you find a way to make some of this stuff better? Because metacognition is the greatest gift that we can help somebody, right? Help them figure out their strengths, help them figure out their weaknesses, the strategies are going to work and the tools. Because we're going to come in contact with people who have had sustained a brain injury. A traumatic brain injury, is an event that happens. It is a quick change in somebody, especially if it is a severe brain injury that somebody is, their life is completely changed. So they might just be down on themselves, and helping them find those strengths and weaknesses and strategies to help them is going to be one of the greatest gifts that we can give the people that we're working with. So what does that look like? So initiation and planning. So does somebody have what it takes to initiate a task, right? Can they make a schedule with clear start times? Can they use a timer or Alexa to initiate that? Hey, Johnny, you have an appointment at 9 o'clock today, right? Reminding them at 8 o'clock. Can they use a wall calendar to say, hey, you know what? I've got to go to the learning center at 10 o'clock today for a special class that I've got to do. And again, get that reminders or get their approval to kind of remind them, because a lot of times after a brain injury, it's initiation problems can look like somebody is being lazy. And it's not, they just can't make those steps to do what they need to do, right? They're like, dang it, I need to get to class today, but it's kind of like a not a lack of motivation, but it can look like that sometimes. But their brain can't find that focus to get up and do things. Because you can set an alarm and you can have Alexa to help somebody, but you can hit snooze. I hit snooze on my alarm all the time in the morning, right? But they might not have that initiation to get up and do it then. So when do you, as the caregiver or the person working with them, have the agreement and ability to step in and help them at that point? Planning, right? Do they have the ability to plan for their day? Right? Are they somebody who can say, okay, sitting here in my mind, I'm like, okay, I've got to do this at this time and I've got to do this at this time. So kind of really getting yourself organized for the day. Or do they need to write it down? I am a list person. I write things down because I'm going to forget what I need to do, right? So write those down, check them off. Routine is so important for somebody with an injury. And if they're somebody who communicates without words, or they might need some help, right? Use drawings or pictures. I know that we all have expectations of what we do and how we like things, but that person might not understand that, right? So use pictures and figure that out. Organization with the stuff above, right? Do they have the ability to organize things in their brain? Are they somebody that needs things color coded? With my eye difficulties, I have to color code my closet when in very bright light. Otherwise, who knows what I would have on, right? I might have blue and purple on one day, or you never know. But so do they need things color coded, right? Does that help them? Do they need things in categories? Pictures. I know that when my daughter started cleaning her room, I had a conception of the way that I wanted her room clean, but her 6-year-old brain had a completely different conception, right? So that person after that brain injury, they might not be able to conceptualize what that organization looks like. So maybe they need a picture to help them. Maybe they need those steps drawn out for them. And then what does completion look like? Do they need a checklist to get it done? Do they think that things are completed when they're not? And do they need cues to keep going? I was a family teaching director for an agency for a while, and we had somebody who he would get off task, right? He loved to talk, just loved to chat with people, and that was awesome because we wanted him to do that. But he would get lost and he wouldn't go back and complete his work. So we just, it was simple. We set a timer. And that really started to help him, right? He had every 10 minutes, his timer went off and he had to go turn it off. So it got him back to his workstation. But if you have one of those situations, Charlie's not getting his daily task done, why? Right? Does he have an initiation problem that some people are saying, oh, he's just lazy, he doesn't want to do it? Well, that might not be the case at all. He might not be able to to get started, right? We got to help people get started doing things. We're organizing things. If things are complete chaos and disarray, a lot of us can't do things. And flexibility, reason, and problem solving, right? So extreme stuckness. So perseveration, right? A lot of people, this might be something you see with autism, brain injury. I know with my grandma, we saw it with her Alzheimer's or her dementia. People get stuck on things, right? And it's not that they want to get stuck on things and they want to keep repeating things, but that's what their brain is doing right now, right? So maybe we can find a way to help them through that, right? Because if they're stuck on something, they don't have the flexibility to go from one thing to another. So can we help them by adding to that? Can we allow them to be allow the inflexibility when it's not hurting anybody, right? Can we allow things to be the same for a while? We're also always remembering that's not the brain. And then brainstorm different ways beforehand to handle it, right? So if you've got somebody who, you know, really likes going to the park, but they don't have the flexibility to turn off from that. Let's find different ways beforehand to kind of combat that so that we don't have behaviors when it happens. Or if you have somebody who really likes, you guys might do like math or something. I'm not sure what you guys do in the learning center. Somebody really, really loves it, but they don't really like to read that much, right? It could be for a different reason. Maybe their vision is bad or something. Let's brainstorm ways before we get into that and talk through that before we have an issue at the end, right? Hey, Johnny, we only have 30 minutes to do this. So I'm going to give you a warning. And so you can start thinking about how we're going to transition positively today, right? Maybe there's an incentive involved. Maybe you print off an extra sheet for them to send home, or whatever you can do to kind of help get them moving, right? And then reasoning and problem solving. We might have to use questions to assist them, especially if it's something, like a life decision, right? We might have to assist them through that. Encourage thinking things through. Like, so what would happen if we went to the park and we had a behavior because you didn't want to leave? What are the consequences that of that, right? Maybe you have a rule that they can't go for a few days, right? So let's just help them think that through and then write things down or give them pictures or reminders to help with that. And then judgment, perception, and abstract thinking, right? So a lot of times we know people, adults who don't have disabilities, or they don't know that they've ever had a brain injury, right? They have really bad judgment and perception and abstract thinking, right? So some people never fully successfully have these skills. So somebody with a brain injury, sometimes this is really affected, right? So let's identify all the options you have. Let's weigh these. Let's see how this is going to work at the end of the day. Let's put it down on paper, right? If you're somebody who, you found yourself in a situation where, let's say, you've had a traumatic brain injury, and you had to go live with mom and dad, and they don't like your friends, right? Or some of your friends are bad influences, right? Let's think that through. Let's think of how this is going to impact our day. Let's think about this. Let's walk through this, right? So just helping them weigh all their options and thinking things through. And then perception. Are they seeing and hearing things the way that you are trying to interpret them? Because a lot of times that's not the case. Even for coworkers and employees and people at the learning center, we don't all see things the same way. So if you're giving somebody instruction or you have an expectation of them, let's make sure that they're actually seeing and hearing what you said. I use recall for this, especially with my 6-year-old, right? She doesn't have a disability. She's just 6. Um, I use this with my mother because she really hears and sees things the way that she wants to. So we have recall. Sometimes she gets a little annoyed with me for that, but I need to make sure that she's hearing things, especially on if we're planning something. So it's okay to ask people, but make sure that you're doing it in a way that it doesn't demean them and make them feel like there's something wrong with them, right? And abstract thinking is a very high level skill. Again, some people that we know never get to this level, right? We need to make things more concrete. We need to watch figurative language and idioms. And we need to explain things. We need to explain. let's remember that our brain has changed after our brain injury. So we may not remember things or think about things in the same way that we used to. Idioms, I will give you one. My grandmother used to always tell us as little kids if we were crying, oh, don't cry over spilled milk, right? Don't cry over stuff that's not important. Well, after her brain injury, I used this on her on something, and she had a complete meltdown in the kitchen and thought that I was blaming her for spilling milk. This is something that I had heard her say for 30 plus years to me as a child. And now I had to explain it, and I had I really felt bad because it wasn't my intention to make her feel bad, but she didn't understand what I was saying anymore. So we need to explain things. We need to use really general language, and don't assume that people understand what you're saying. And then language, cognitive changes impact language, right? It might not impact the language itself, but it might impact the language, the way you're hearing and speaking, right? And it is oftentimes affected by people for people who have stroke, right? So we know about people who, excuse me, have had a stroke and then they have slurred speech or what have you. This isn't usual after a brain injury, but language difficulties are processing and such. So receptive language, right? This is our information processing. The speed in which we take language in, right? We might, as professionals and individuals, need to talk slower. We might need to pause more. I know that I talk fast. I'm originally from Illinois, so I talk a little bit faster than some people who live down here in Tennessee. And I've slowed down a lot, right? But I still don't talk as fast as somebody from New York or, Maine or somewhere like that. But so just slow down. Duration, give people less information. If you are long-winded, I'm long-winded, right? I already told you guys that. So I give too much information sometimes. Only give them the information they need, right? Hey, Johnny, I'm going to pick you up at 7:00, and then we need to make sure that you have everything together that you need. And then we need to leave the house by 7:30, and then I got to stop by and get gas. And you give them 10 more things, and then you're like, oh, and then we got to be at your appointment by 9. I forgot what I said already, right? And they're going to forget. So just give them the information they need. Don't give them all of that unnecessary stuff in the middle. And simplify that vocabulary, right? Simplify your grammar and the topic. Let's make sure that they understand why we need them to know this information. And then control those distractions. If you need somebody to know something, turn the TV off, turn the video games off, make sure that you don't have 10 million things going on in someone's visual space when you're trying to explain something to them. And make sure that they understood you, right? Ask them again, kindly and not demeaning. Hey, I know I gave you a lot of instruction so that I know that I didn't miss anything. Can we talk through what we're going to do tomorrow, right? Make it light, make it seem like we all need to clarify together. And then receptive language, right? What are those distractions? What type of environment do they need? What type of environment do you need? And sometimes people won't necessarily ask questions because they don't know that they don't understand you until it's too late. So that could be a problem. Okay, so expressive language, for after a brain injury. Talking too much is obviously a problem, right? But talking too little is a problem too. That can lead to isolation. It can lead to not getting things done. It can lead to just a whole lot of things. So maybe you can make a game of it, right? So if somebody talks too much, okay, Jimmy, I need you to tell me in 5 words or less the answer to this question. You only have 5 words, and you can count, right? I mean, count for them. Or, um, Jim, I need you to tell me in more than 10 words what you did today, right? So they actually give you something and make a game of it. Is their language organized or is it disorganized? Because if it's not organized, they're going to forget things, and they're not going to be able to remember things also, or they're not going to be able to process and say things back to you, right? So is this somebody who's got tangential language, right? Do they get sidetracked? You always have to bring them back to the conversation. You can try not to make them feel bad. Like, okay, that is really interesting, but let's go back to talking about this. And when we're done with this, I want you to tell me all about that. Right. And you can kind of reassure them that you want to know what they're trying to say to you, but we'll talk about that later. Again, you might have to help them find words, but that is one of those things that you absolutely want to be like, get that understanding. When can I help you? You don't ever want to talk for somebody. It's rude, it's disrespectful, and it can be demeaning, right? So, and I know that parents sometimes have a hard time keeping on the right side of this line, right? Talking for our children, but don't do that. And if they're okay with it, especially like at the doctor's office, right? That's a good example that I can have because you only have a limited amount of time. So maybe that is a situation where, hey, you know what, can I step in if you can't find those words and help you? But you know what, in the same aspect, you can also say, hey, give me one letter in that word. And you can try and help them figure out, especially if you have a a kind of if it's medical or if there's a theme to what they're saying, I'm sorry, you can kind of try and help them, right? So also complexity, what are you talking about? And I already talked about perseveration. And changes in tone. Is somebody monotone, right? We've all been in those situations where people are extremely monotone, or does somebody speak with just really, really high pitched voice? That could be something that happens also. So we got to look at the cognitive problems and see how they impact language, right? So receptive language, example of that. Okay, so cognition, that attention awareness problem. The result, they're not understanding. They might not know to ask questions at the end of it to make sure that they've clarified, but they might not realize that they need to ask questions either. An example of expressive language, right? That's could be somebody who's disorganized and they perseverate. So they're stuck on something. The result is retell the day is all over the place, and it tends to keep coming back to one certain event, right? They could have done 50 million things that day, but they keep talking about the park, right? And you can't get out everything else that they've done. So just some little examples of that for you. And you might have to dig a little deeper into the problem areas, right? Charlie's forgetting. Well, why is Charlie forgetting? We have people say all the time, well, their memory's terrible. Well, I don't know about that. It's usually not the memory. It's usually people that aren't, they're not paying attention, right? So if I'm telling my husband that he needs to do something and he's playing video games, no, he's not going to hear me. If I tell my 6-year-old that she needs to do something or that we're going to do something, and she's watching a video on her tablet, she's not going to look. No, I can just hang that up, right? So make sure you have their attention before you expect them to remember something. Depression, anxiety, being sick, those can all wipe out your cognition. So just remember that if somebody's extremely depressed or upset, they're not going to remember it. Lack of organization, right? Are they getting things disorganized in their brain? Initiation, do they have a problem getting started? Do they need somebody to help them just get started and then they're fine? Or something else going on? And a lot of times you can ask that person and walk through that with them, right? Okay, and then testing. So neuropsychological testing is a gold standard for traumatic brain injury. So academic testing and school psychologist testing, that tests your academic, your IQ, and they could add some other stuff in there, right? But so neuropsychological testing is the gold standard because it goes into all these different domains, right? It's that brain behavior relationship, that academic, those specific domains of cognitive functioning. It goes into all of that. I'm going to show you a nice little chart. So this is neuropsychological testing, right? This is everything that it tests. But so let's take out that. Okay, so attention is right here. Let me find my mouse. Attention's right here. So let's take out attention. Attention's up here. All this stuff is going to fall in there, right? So if you don't know how somebody's attention is, you can't help them. You might have to get a cognitive linguistic testing done by a speech language pathologist, receptive language, to understand that receptive language, that how are they understanding that and taking that information in? Expressive language, right? How is that coming back out? How's our reading, writing, and social skills, right? Our social skills can really affect our day to day. And then, so BrainLinks has a cognitive brainstorming solutions tool. And this is to help you better understand what is going on with that person. This is on our resource page. There's also going to be a link to that in this video. But you can find solutions to what's going on. It goes into all of these different cognitive areas, right? Attention, memory, initiation, planning, problem solving, judgment. It is 4 pages long. It looks like a lot, but some people, you're not going to use all of these. Maybe you will, maybe you won't. But to understand this as much as I could, I did this on myself. So have that person, maybe they could do one, right? And you guys could come back together and look at that together. Maybe the individual, the parent, and you could do one, right? So we can all get an understanding of what each person is seeing. Maybe you don't want to bring parent in. Maybe just you and the individual that you're working with wants to do this. It's a really good tool to use. But it also goes into vision, hearing, motor ability, social, and emotional state in that environment. What is that environment like? Excuse me. It talks about medications too, and injuries and illnesses, because those are so important. Medications, if they're a drug user, obviously that's going to affect them. But if they're on medications, have their medications changed? We're not physicians, but it's really important for us to point that out. Sometimes it takes a long time for the side effects of medications to build up, to present themselves. But also sometimes it takes, if somebody's medication has changed, that's going to change their cognition. If they're sick or if they're injured, right, that's going to change how our brain is working. Allergy medicine. Do not give me allergy medicine and expect me to function all day. I will be asleep. You guys will find me asleep somewhere. Or I can have a conversation with you and not remember it. So what kind of medications are they taking? And it goes into all these, right? And it kind of gives you descriptions. Their attention, right? You got to consider the visual attention, their memory. What is that verbal memory like? Processing speed. Do we need to slow down? So it just really deeply goes into this, but it also gives you things to go on to. And then so there's also what to do, right? Solutions. What do you do about this? What do I need to do to support them, right? Uh, do you need to cue the person for forgetting, right? Is there an understanding or an agreement on when we do that? Strategies for the person can use, right? Can they use a calendar? Can they use Alexa? Can they use that alarm? What's that environment like? But please, 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 I cannot stress enough. Make sure that person is involved in this plan. Otherwise, it's not going to work. So let's just remember that. And then we have a personal guide for everyday living, right? The purpose for this is to raise understanding for that person, that metacognition, right? You can use this for the older child, for teens, for the caregivers, for the adults. Um, it states things that make your performance worse, like I just said, medications, depression, being tired. It helps you understand what distractions are and how those work. And then it reiterates using old strategies, where if this is somebody that needed to make a list, like I make a daily list before brain injury, they're probably really going to need to make that list now, right? Because having a brain injury doesn't usually make things easier, it usually complicates things. So if there's somebody that had to take notes and use recall or use a recording device in school, then you probably have to go back to that and look at that again. But and then so this is the Center for Brain Injury Research and Training. They have a staff TBI skill builder. This is free. It's a 14 module online learning for professionals. So if you all would like to take this, might work really well for you all. And a lot of the people in this video, I will tell you, are very high functioning individuals. But it gives you a good look into how to work with somebody with a brain injury. It's an amazing course. Like I said, I took it. They give you resources and you get a certificate afterwards. Couldn't think of that. And again, don't forget about our service coordinators. I covered this really well in the last video. They're free. They will help develop a comprehensive plan. They will help find you resources. Jimmy Morris is in Jackson area, and I would love to get you guys his information. I know that Miss Stockdale has it as well. Please take this evaluation survey that will be at the in the detail of this recording. We are a grant funded program, so this is vital to our future grants. And here's our information. I'm Carrie Carlson. I'm in West Tennessee. Paula Denzel is our director in Middle. Wendy Elmo is a brain injury specialist also in Middle, and Jen Raymond is an East Tennessee brain injury specialist. Follow us on any one of our social medias. And if you ever want to see anything on there, just let me know. I'd love to put it on there for you all. And that concludes our session for today. So thank you.